From the City of Angels near the Pacific Ocean, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie. This is Coast to Coast AM. Later tonight, messages from the other side. Here's what's happening. A massive winter storm could be heading your way, spreading across the U.S., west into the northern plains and Midwest. Could produce blizzards, brutal cold, and record snowfall, making road travel treacherous and disrupting air travel. Up to 2 feet of snow and winds of up to 60 miles an hour expected in some spots. Be careful. Former President Donald Trump boasted about his very good relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin ahead of the one-year anniversary of Russia's war in Ukraine. The former president also defended his previous claim that he trusted Mr. Putin over U.S. intelligence. This is what he said. Putin never, ever would have gone into Ukraine if I were president, he claimed at a rally in Florida. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has delivered a stark warning that he would be suspending his nation's participation in a nuclear arms treaty with us, threatening to resume testing of nuke weapons. Putin made his speech almost exactly a year after the invasion of Ukraine. Dr. John Curtis, onlinecolumnist.com, with us here. John, this thing seems like it's getting out of control here.
You're 100% right. Biden was boasting in Warsaw today, taunting Putin, saying basically, you're never going to win in Ukraine. You're never going to beat us, and making statements like that. I mean, this is somebody who is beyond the pale right now. Getting the U.S. into a hot war with the Russian Federation was not a Phi Beta Kappa move on the part of Biden. I mean, this is probably the worst military blunder in the history of the United States. Then you have him threatening China now, saying that if China, which he drove into the Russian orbit to become a very close military and political alliance, Biden is now, and the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, is threatening China with unspecified, sanctions if they continue providing any support to the Russian Federation. And they were rebuked very resoundingly by the foreign minister, Wang Yi, who basically told them, mind your own business, we'll affiliate with whoever we want. But the START Treaty, George, which was negotiated in 2010, I mean, that's during the Obama administration, was the last remaining nuclear treaty after decades of détente, decades of diplomacy that has now been canceled by Putin. And he's essentially saying, look, you threaten Mother Russia with a collective attack against the Russian Federation, with NATO, the United States, going after to break up the Russian government. And we reserve the right to use nuclear weapons to defend ourselves. And that's really what the message is to the West right now. And how far does Biden want to push this? To World War III and nuclear war? Or does he want to get to that peace table, let those peacemakers do their job, and end this war?
What did you think of former President Trump saying that Putin would never have gone into Ukraine had he still been president?
I 100% believe that, because unlike Biden, Trump had an excellent relationship with Putin. It was only the media in their persecution constantly of Trump that made any kind of a relationship next to impossible. But that is 100% correct. Putin would have never gone into Ukraine if Trump were still president.
Keep your eyes on this one for us, John. John's website, onlinecolumnist.com. U.S. stocks have climbed to unsustainable highs and face imminent losses once investors realize that there will be no Federal Reserve pivot later this year, according to executives at Morgan Stanley. Mortgage debt rose by $290 billion last year, according to a report, the second highest annual increase since the end of the Great Recession. My gosh, what's this all mean? Number one best-selling author of The Coming Financial Crisis, John Truman Wolfe, with us. John, they keep saying there's going to be a bubble burst with real estate. What do you think?
Hi, George. Well, the debt is screaming up, not only in terms of mortgages, as you just noted, but also credit card debt is at a highest level, George. It's almost $1 trillion, $986 billion in credit card debt. And the credit card debt was soaring during the last quarter of 2022. So this is not good. This means people are turning to live on their plastic. Added to that is the problem that the interest rates on credit cards have hit an all-time high, an average of 19.1%.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to shop for credit card rates. There are all kinds of rates. Right now, the rates are averaging higher, but you can get a card with a lower rate and then do a balance transfer. So, a 20% credit card really makes the attempts to get out of debt difficult. Neither of these points, George, are good for the country looking forward into 2023.
What a rough year so far. Thank you, John. The reasons behind a worrying 25% decline in the number of birds over the last 40 years is remaining a mystery, according to a new study. Scientists in the United Kingdom say time is running out to find the answer, and birds summering in Europe and wintering in Africa need more protection than ever before. A flight instructor died in flight after suffering a heart attack, but his co-pilot thought he was fooling around and only realized after landing on the runway that the man slumped on his shoulder was actually dead. My gosh. In a moment, Ben Davidson back with us. We're going to talk about some incredible things with climate change, solar storms, and the ongoing magnetic pole shift next on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Ben Davidson back with us, founder of the Suspicious Observers, Space Weather News, and Observer Ranch. His YouTube channel has more than 200 million views, is approaching 700,000 subscribers, and he has published scientific articles and textbooks on the sun, the earth, and changes to our world. He's also an expert on climate change, solar storms, and the ongoing magnetic pole shift of Earth. Ben, welcome to the program. Good to have you back.
Thank you, George. It's been a while, but it is great to hear your voice one-on-one once again.
Well, the good old sun has been pretty active lately, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly woken up. Lots of solar flares happening right now. Luckily, not too big and not too directly aimed at Earth. But that's why we got to stay vigilant, because that can change any day.
What's your take on this story about the Earth's core, that it's doing some reversals or movements? What's going on?
So that was a story. I can't believe how differently it was reported depending on where you were looking.
Yeah.
Essentially, there had been several scientists who for a while thought that the core was in something called super rotation, which means it was actually rotating faster than the mantle and the crust above us. So basically the idea was that the core was the fastest rotating part of Earth. And based on more recent data, they discovered that maybe it is not super rotating or not super rotating anymore, and actually just going at the same speed as the mantle and the crust above it. And so, there are still some scientists who thought it was never super rotating in the first place. But essentially, if the most recent data is to be believed, then the core has slowed down just a little bit. Not quite reversed its direction or stopped spinning, but the idea that it was actually the fastest rotating part of Earth is probably not the case, at least not anymore.
Ben, have we been lucky that we haven't been hit by an X flare from the sun yet in a while?
Yeah, we're certainly lucky. The sun has been quite kind, quite benign to us, actually. It has had some solar flares, as I mentioned, but they haven't been too big, and they haven't been directly aimed at the Earth. We are just now approaching what is called sunspot maximum, which means that there will be more solar flares, and this is expected to last for probably the next 2 to 4 years.
Wow.
Depending on the sun is feeling, I should say.
Let's hope we don't have a Carrington Event solar flare. We'd be cooked if that happens, huh?
Yeah, we'd be thrown back into something between the Stone Age and the Bronze Age, basically a complete meltdown of our modern society, our modern world.
How long would it take us to get back up to snuff again, if that happened?
Well, that's an interesting question. If it was the kind of thing where it just took out power grids and other things like that, maybe we could get back online in a couple of years. Of course, in that time span, critical infrastructure losses could result in the deaths of, more than 1 billion people. The problem is if we really get something that bad, it's not only going to take out the power grids, it's going to take out all of the communication networks. It's going to take out all of the manufacturing plants. There won't be a way to rebuild when everybody needs help.
No, I mean,
rebuild. So, thousands of years maybe, we could literally be thrown back to the stone.
Unbelievable. Just what we need with what's going on right now. Space weather, what does that mean to us?
Right.
Tell me about space weather.
So space weather is essentially a way to describe how the sun is impacting the Earth. Just like for those of us here on the ground, weather is how things from the sky basically affect our day-to-day lives. Is it sunny? Is it snowing? Is it raining? Is there going to be a thunderstorm? Space weather describes, how is the sun treating the planet as a whole? Are there solar flares? Are there, big plasma ejections coming from the sun and hitting the Earth and putting us at risk of what we were just talking about, a Carrington-like event? And so this is something that has always been existing, always been the case. The problem is the more electrified and electricity dependent we become, the more this becomes an issue.
Ben's website is called observatoryproject.com, which is linked up for you at coasttocoastam.com, and his YouTube channel, Suspicious Observers. You put that in the search bar, it'll pop up. I was watching your videos today. You're only 23,000 people shy of 700,000 members.
Right. Things are growing at quite the rate at this time. There are several reasons that the sun is becoming a much more important player in a lot of different discussions. And, yes, happily seeing that reflecting in the number of people who are actually tuning in and learning about how the sun affects our world.
Ben, does the core, which we just talked about, have anything to do with the magnetic pole shifting?
It really depends on who you ask. If you ask a geologist who has spent 30 years at a university, he's going to say absolutely. If you're going to talk to some more newer age scientists who talk about superconductivity in the sun's magnetic field, they might say it has as much or more to do with the sun. I think it's probably a combination of both. So the answer would be yes, that the core definitely has something to do with Earth's changing magnetic field this time.
We have had a very mild winter so far, but all of a sudden something is blasting through the country over the next couple days, which is going to be a disaster. They're talking about 2 feet of snow, 60-mile-an-hour winds. Where'd all this come from?
So it's actually interesting. We reported just the other day that certain events on the sun can cause what's called a breakdown in the polar vortex. Sometimes this is also referred to as a sudden stratospheric warming, and that would be mostly at the polar region where the polar vortex is felt. Essentially what we have is there are certain changes going on in the sun and changes going on with Earth's magnetic field that is making not only the polar vortex, but all the upper-level jets, including what most people know as the jet stream, to become less predictable and more volatile, which, if it seems like we have more extreme swings in the weather from day to day or week to week than we had in the past, even if necessarily those events aren't something people have never seen before, But if it goes from record warm to really bad storms to record cold in the span of just a couple of days, that is new. And that is something that we are seeing more of. I think that modern climate change, at first they called it global warming. Now they more call it climate change. What they really should be calling it is extreme climate or extreme weather shifting. And that's going to be a lot more of what we're seeing right now. And that is caused by Earth's changes and the changes on the sun right now.
Which also affects the rest of the solar system, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Certainly does.
If you were living on Mars or Venus or another planet, would you be experiencing all these changes too?
Yes, in a slightly different way. However, of course, Earth is the only planet that is exactly like Earth here. But, Venus is experiencing rapid increases in its wind speed. Mars is experiencing pretty significant temperature shifts. Jupiter is having cloud anomalies that were not present in the decades to over a century that we've been watching Jupiter and satellites. Same thing with Saturn. Same thing with Uranus as well. Neptune recently had a superstorm go the wrong direction. What I mean by that is, we know how the biggest storms on Earth tend to go in patterns. For example, hurricanes, they tend to form off the coast of Africa or they're near the tropics, and then they travel west towards the United States. Well, imagine if a hurricane formed off the coast of Virginia, then went south towards Florida, and then went over towards Africa. We would say that can't happen. That's against the patterns. Well, that just happened on Neptune. And even though Pluto has a very thin atmosphere, it has essentially collapsed. They lost a fifth of their atmospheric pressure in just about a year and a half to 2 years' time. And so, we are seeing changes throughout the solar system right now.
Does that red spot on Jupiter ever change?
It didn't change for quite some time, but it actually started to fade several years ago. And a new spot that they call Red Junior was born. This is one of the major cloud anomalies that Jupiter has seen. Just one of the many changes that we've noticed on Jupiter. So, a couple of years ago, I might have said no. That great red spot on Jupiter doesn't change, but it turns out it does now.
All these weather anomalies, Ben, does it have an effect on people's psyche?
Unfortunately, yes, it does. And it's more than just the weather effects. One of the reasons we're having these weather effects is because as Earth's magnetic field changes, more radiation from space is actually allowed to get into the Earth. The magnetic field is what protects us from this radiation from space. And so while it is an absolute fact that having more extreme swings in the climate does have an effect on people's psyche, unfortunately, this radiation from space also directly impacts the brain, and in two very profound ways. It hits a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is largely responsible for our cognitive powers or our cognitive prowess. And so if it seems like people aren't acting as intelligently as they once were, there's a good explanation for that. It also affects a little part of the brain that's called the locus coeruleus, which is the brain's power center for things like panic reaction, anxiety, fear, terror. And so if it seems like coupled with a lack of intelligence, people are acting out of fear, out of anxiety, there's higher levels of emotional instability, there's a good reason for that too.
Tell me about the name of your YouTube channel, Suspicious Observers.
So that was actually invented by a friend of mine who is now retired from NASA. I was talking with him years ago about some of the changes on the planet and how they might be as much or more related to the climate changes we're seeing as what they like to tell us on the news. And what he said in agreement was, Ben, the people who change science, they aren't treated very well while the science is changing. But if you ever actually want to make a difference in the scientific world in a big way, you need to do two things. You need to be suspicious of this notion that we've got it all figured out, because the history of science is people thinking they've had it figured out, and then the science changes. And in addition to being suspicious of that notion, you have to be observing everything. While specialization is nice and needed in some way, at some point you have to step back and be able to look interdisciplinary from a Renaissance perspective and be able to see everything that's going on. How does the sun impact the weather? How is what's happening in the weather related to earthquakes? How is what's happening in the magnetic field related to weather? And so I remember saying to him after he explained this to me, well, it sounds like you have to be a suspicious observer.
I love that name. Stay with us, Ben. We got a quick break, and we'll come back and chat more. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, Ben Davidson with us. We're going to take calls next hour with Ben, so get ready to put your space weather hat on. Ben, do you see anything out there that should be dangerous or concerning to all of us?
Yes, it's what you had mentioned a couple of times, Earth's changing magnetic field. This is something that does not happen very often on this planet, and some of the things that I've already mentioned, the increased radiation from space actually being able to get down into the Earth system, it's going to cause not just a worse climate, not just more effects on people's psyche, but this can affect everything down to earthquakes and volcanoes. It can affect people's DNA. It's a pretty significant event that happens on our planet only, every several thousand years or so. And unfortunately, even with everything else we have going on in the world, it's just one more thing to put on the list of potential concerns for the near-term future.
And what about concerns for animals? What could happen to them?
So they are as vulnerable as we are in a lot of ways. The fact that humans are dependent on electricity in a large part of the world is a negative for us, but we also have our intelligence and our ability to consume and understand information. From the animal perspective, obviously, more extreme climate shifts are not good for them. More radiation is not good for them. But perhaps most importantly, it's not just birds that use Earth's magnetic field. There's many mammals that use Earth's magnetic field. There's many marine creatures or creatures that live in the water that use Earth's magnetic field for everything from navigation to finding food to finding their breeding grounds to even subtle signals for things that are vital to their lives. And so when we have such an enormous part of the food chain, so to speak, that is dependent on Earth's magnetic field in order for their life processes, this is something that can have cascading effects across the entire food chain. That can happen if even one link in the chain starts to have a problem. But we're seeing that this is several links in the air, in the water, and on the ground. And so this is something that's going to end up affecting just about everything on Earth.
What causes whales, Ben, to beach?
So there are a lot of things that cause whales to beach, but one of them is, in fact, changes in the magnetic field. Now, these are both the long-term changes that I was just alluding to, but also the solar storms that we were talking about earlier. There was a fantastic study done by NASA scientists several years ago that showed that when there's a pretty significant solar effect on the Earth, we get more whale beachings. And this is probably going to become even more prominent than it has been. If it seems like there have been more stories about it, it's not just that there's more people with cell phones taking video. It's not just that there's more access to news. It is becoming a more prominent thing. And a lot of that has to do with what we were talking about, the changes on the Earth and Sun right now.
Are these events things that could be or will be?
They are ongoing and will be much worse into the future. We are only about 25% of the way into this event of a changing magnetic field on Earth. And, it's gotten significantly more impactful in only just the last couple of years. We noticed only minor changes during the first, I'd say, 15 to 20% of the change, but even just these last 5 to 10% of the changes that we've seen so far, they are pretty significant. And it's an unfortunate thing, but it's something we'll all have to square up with and face in the years ahead.
We've all seen the pictures of the tragedy in Turkey and Syria with the earthquake that happened this month and 44,000 people dead. Is there anything people can do? I mean, what can we do to avoid problems like this?
Well, there's not a lot that can be done other than being aware that this is the path that the Earth is going on right now. It does appear from some of the evidence that is locked in rock and sediment from some past times that this has happened that, humans today have never seen the kind of volcanoes and earthquakes and mega tsunamis that can actually hit this planet and have over and over again throughout geologic time. We just happen to be living at, what is unfortunately nearing the end of a very kind time. The Earth has been very kind to us for quite some time, and it's just a matter of fact that is not always the case. These nice, kind times that Earth gives to its inhabitants are punctuated by what can only be described as disaster.
Do end times prophecies in the Bible predict any of these things?
I have been shocked as a scientist at just how much end time prophecies are appearing to come true. A lot of people think you either have to have faith or have science. As a man of science, as a man of math, as a man of statistics, I cannot deny how much of a matchup there is between what we are seeing in the natural world and what I read in that book. And it's not just in terms of what they say to expect with the sun and the earth and the weather and the earthquakes, but if you look at the way people will begin to act, they will begin to lose certain parts of themselves, what made them an honorable and kind stewards of this planet and of life in general. Everything from the natural world and the weather to the way people are acting these days, which, it's simple observation. It can't be denied that it's happening. And as a man of statistics and math, I have to look at how much both of those things are matching up with things like end-time prophecy and say, this is too much to simply ignore. There is statistical merit to actually saying this is exactly what was written in that book all those years ago, and we're watching it play out right now.
I think we take a lot of things for granted, too, Ben. We hit a switch, electricity comes on. We turn on our furnace. Our natural gas furnaces heat us during the winter time. It always seems to be there. What happens one day when it's not there?
That's an excellent question. And essentially, it's the kind of thing you have to, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to think about. What happens in the wintertime when you don't have heat? What happens when stores can't refrigerate food, when you can't refrigerate food? What happens when the ATM machines aren't working? What happens when there's no gas from the pump, there's no water from your tap and your faucet? What happens when you can't call 911? What happens when there's no internet, when there's no communication, when there's no global infrastructure that we've used to basically build the world we have today? Well, the United States government had basically said if we lose power, 90% of the people would be lost within about a year. And, it might be even more than that. And unfortunately, these things we've taken for granted are also the things that are becoming more and more vulnerable as Earth is changing in this way. And they are the things that are causing most people to be vulnerable when the situation gets even just a little bit worse.
What do you think is the worst possible scenario?
The worst possible scenario is when these current ongoing changes to the magnetic field get to a point where this magnetic field of our planet can't protect us from the sun in the way that we have experienced our entire lives.
Right.
This has happened many times in the past, but when people weren't dependent on electricity, there was little more than, the auroras, the northern lights, a pretty show that was put on in the sky, and they would tell stories of gods or other things like that, And right now, unfortunately, the major risk is that we have become dependent on these systems that are now more vulnerable every day to something happening on the sun. And the worst case scenario is one day the sun takes our power, one day it's there, and one day none of the switches work. Within a day or two, there won't be any food at the store, no gas in your vehicle, no phone, no internet.
Planes fall from the sky?
It's very possible, especially since the satellites will be greatly affected by any kind of a solar storm. The changes to the magnetic field in general, plus whatever changes the solar storm is imparting, they're going to make GPS virtually unusable. It's about worst case scenario one could imagine.
We have for years been proponents of insulating our power grid against an EMP attack, electromagnetic pulse, or a solar flare from the sun. But there could be other ways that gets that power source, right?
Definitely. And unfortunately, they have not been as proactive in protecting the grid as perhaps people like you or I would like. I can remember being in Washington, D.C. several years ago, and several of the best scientists in this field had basically said, we're not ready for any kind of attack, whether it's an EMP, whether it's hacking, or whether it's a solar storm, that our grids are not prepared. And while there have been executive orders, from Obama, from Trump, about, space weather and solar storms and things to do, it is moving at a terrifyingly slow bureaucratic level. And, one wonders if we're just going to take too long and something's going to happen before we have the chance to really harden our society against these risks.
Ben, do some of these changes explain why so many people are acting whacked out and weird?
Yeah, certainly. It's not just that, as we were discussing before, there's a direct radiation impact. It's not just, as we were discussing before, that greater weather swings have an effect on the psyche. In concert with these natural things that are happening, the world is becoming a very different place than even I remember. And I'm only 38 years old, but I look back to what the world was like when I was a kid, and I don't recognize it anymore. Whether it's the blatant use of media and social media to affect people's minds, whether it's what I can honestly call, if I'm being kind, a degeneracy of the population. If I'm not being so kind, it kind of seems like morals, honor, loyalty, and ethics are being replaced by that degeneracy, and in some cases, what looks like almost Satanism if you watch things like the Grammys or the Super Bowl halftime show or things like that. And so from literally every angle, from what we consume as media to what the weather is doing, to the subtle ways we can't see how space radiation is actually coming down and more greatly affecting people, it's like we're getting hit in our psyche from every angle, in every way that could possibly affect our emotions, our decision-making, our demeanor.
And some people can't take it.
No, a lot of people can't take it. We're seeing hospitalizable depression on the rise. We're seeing anxiety on the rise. We're seeing suicide on the rise. And, what's harder to see statistically is the subtle emotional instability that is creeping into everyone's lives when it doesn't result in a suicide, when it doesn't result in having to be hospitalized due to anxiety or depression, when it just more affects how well one can do their job, when it affects how a husband and wife can live together and raise their children, when it affects how children are handling the stresses of growing up. Growing pains are now, much, much more challenging, and there aren't necessarily the support structures there that there were in the past. And that includes from everything from their teachers to their parents to what information is available to them. And so it's, again, like I said, it's coming from every angle, testing us in ways that it appears most people aren't ready to be tested.
Ben, we're going to take a quick break and come back and take phone calls with you next. Ben Davidson with us, website linked up at coasttocoastam.com. Don't forget his YouTube in the search bar, and it's free to sign up to subscribe. Just type in Suspicious Observers, and his YouTube channel pops up. But we'll be back with your calls. The lines are now. This hour we'll take your calls with Ben Davidson about Earth changes, solar changes as well, solar system changes. You name it, we've got it with your calls on Coast to Coast. And welcome back to Coast. George Noory with you along with Ben Davidson. Ben, when will other scientists jump on board some of the things you've said tonight and start saying, you know what, this is really happening?
At a large scale, that's a very good question. At a smaller scale, I have noticed a shift already, but it's very slow going. It seems to be happening almost one by one rather than, something hits the airwaves and everybody jumps on board with it. It seems to be a slow, progressive awakening to what's happening and the reasons for why things are happening. I'm not sure exactly what it would take. I'm sure if there was a major solar storm tomorrow that took out power to a large portion of the world, that people would wake up. But, I also wonder if maybe there won't be that greater awakening until it's too late, and there's not much we could actually do about it.
And what is too late? What is your definition of that?
When it's come to a point where, despite our scientific and technological prowess as a species, we're not able to adequately prepare everyone for what's coming, both in terms of informing them and actually getting some kind of physical, psychological preparations that can actually help them deal with what's coming. That could be everything from a solar storm actually taking out the power, as we were describing earlier, or it could be something like the magnetic field changes to the point where there's so much radiation coming in that we as a species just lose ourselves entirely.
How long do you think some people can go, Ben, today without their cell phone?
There are some people who seem like they can't go 10 minutes without their cell phone.
Right.
I think that if that technology was lost within about a day or two, people would really start to find themselves in a precarious position psychologically.
They'd be lost, wouldn't they?
They truly would be.
I mean, can you imagine? No internet, no Instagram, no Facebook, nothing. No social networking for people.
It would present a pretty significant challenge to the way people have become accustomed to living their lives. That's for sure.
Let's go to the phones. Joe, Long Island, New York, gets us started. Hey, Joseph, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Ben. Great discussion. I have like two questions and then maybe like a comment. My first question would be not a lot, but there's some talk among your colleagues that some of the other objects in the solar systems do qualify as planets and should be named as planets. And on what basis do they really make that claim? My second question would be about, that controversy. People have said, well, maybe we should look into the depths of the ocean. I don't know how far down you could go to the ocean steps, like in the Mariana Trench. I think it's just too far down to see what's there before we put more of an investment in the moon. And then I would ask you about the deceptions that you see. Do you see a lot of that, the deception of omission in terms of media?
Take anyone you want.
Sure. Well, I mean, I can hit them all pretty quickly, and I think pretty proficiently. First off, I will always call Pluto a planet. Pluto is a planet. Don't let anybody ever tell you it's not. The way they define planets are they're having a certain size to them, big enough that over time they have sort of collapsed into a sphere. How well they have cleared their orbit over time. And because there are several things out near Pluto, they say it hasn't really cleared its orbit because of how small it is and other things like that. I think that anything that is big enough to, have that pretty well-defined orbit where it's affecting more things around it gravitationally than things are affecting it, it should be called a planet. And first and foremost, that certainly applies to Pluto. There's also a large object in the asteroid belt called Ceres, and I think that should probably be called a planet as well. In terms of the depths of the ocean, absolutely. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the bottom of the ocean. There is an unbelievable, untapped resource of information about our planet, the history of the planet, and potentially the life on this planet as well that we just don't know about. I would agree wholeheartedly that we should be fully understanding the world on which we live before we, go full throttle in trying to outdo those efforts of understanding when it comes to other worlds that we do not live on and probably won't. In terms of the deception of omission in the media, this is one of the reasons why the world is not as aware as it should be. They don't necessarily have to come out and try to say something isn't real or something isn't concerning. They just have to not talk about it at all and throw other things before our eyes. And people get distracted. They're misinformed. They're uninformed. Perhaps is even as good a way of describing it. And this not only goes for, what people traditionally think of as the media and the news, but this is in terms of censorship of things on social media as well, and things on the internet. It is really the lack of reporting or the removal of information that is just as damaging as them giving us bad facts. And I think I'd agree with pretty much everything that the caller said there.
All right, let's go to Brian, the state of Washington, on the wild card line. Hey, Brian, go ahead, sir.
Hi, George. Hi, Ben.
Hi there.
This is what I got. I was wondering what you thought, Ben. I know you wrote a lot of things on pole shifts, and if we could tie this into, history of our Mother Earth to, biblical times. And I've tried to do research on, say, Moses, the 17th day, the second month, a great deep burst. So whatever year BC that could have been, but the research I could never try to figure out was, say, like the Great Pyramid of Giza, where a lot of people say it was this until a lot of people talk about erosion, where could have this all happened over time, or did it happen in one flash? And then I'll compare that to, say, the Grand Canyon, where some scientists say, well, this took over millions of years to erode, or it happened in one flash. And I just was wondering your thoughts of maybe this tying into the Bible of this great burst of water, how they tie it into the Bible, the Great Flood. And I was wondering your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I think that both things have truth to them. Certainly, the winds, the water, the geologic shifts of time tick away at great things. But as I mentioned earlier, these long, slow, often peaceful periods are punctuated by great catastrophes. And the fact that they have that evidence of what I mentioned before, the slow geologic and weather processes, are used to essentially explain away everything. When you say millions of years, hundreds of millions of years for this, for that, it basically allows them to explain everything and anything, when in reality, there are much better explanations for some of the more severe aspects, some of the more prominent aspects of both natural features and ancient megaliths that are, especially now that we know more about how cataclysmic some of these past events were, they're just more easily explained by both major events, like what you were describing with the great bursts of water, the waters from below coming forth, as they are by just saying, hundreds of millions of years of this or that. It's one of those deceptions by omission, or deceptions by misinformation that we were talking about even just a minute before you hopped on. So I would say that where the caller appears to have been going with that is something I would agree with. There's a lot of evidence that whether you're looking at it from a purely scientific standpoint in examining the geologic evidence of these past disasters, or you're looking at the stories from the Bible, and you're taking a purely spiritual aspect, I'll come back to the idea that these are not one or the other anymore. They are coming together and realizing that they're telling the same story, but from a different perspective.
Let's go next to first-time caller Patrick, the Big Island of Hawaii. Hello, Patrick. Go ahead.
Aloha, George. Aloha, Ben.
Hi.
First-time caller, long-time listener. I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
I've been solar weather aware since the 1970s and following all the solar cycles since then, before we had satellite data. And I've noticed a couple anomalies, specifically one with this current solar cycle 25, and the lack of coronal holes on the northern and southern hemisphere. I was wondering if Ben could address that. Secondly, when we have an active region that's turning towards Earth and producing various flares, when it reaches Earth-facing position, they kind of peter out and they don't pick back up until they're past facing Earth. I was hoping that Ben could also address that as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead, Ben. See what you can do.
Sure. So the lack of coronal holes. This one is, we went through the solar system and talking about the changes on the planets, but perhaps the object that is changing the most is the sun. We are noticing a change in the helium chemistry, and we are noticing a change in the magnetic fields of the sun. Just like Earth's magnetic field is changing, a lot of the other planets' changes indicate that their magnetic fields are changing. We can directly measure the sun's magnetic fields, and we know that they are changing as well. And one of the prominent features of coronal holes is, instead of the magnetic fields being connected on both sides to the sun, they're actually what they call open flux, where the magnetic field starts at the sun and then streams all the way out through the solar system, all the way out past Pluto. And we really started to notice this change in the coronal holes right about the time that they started to notice the changes in the chemistry and the changes in the magnetic fields overall in the sun. And so what this caller first identified was, what we left out earlier when we were talking about the planets. And when I say we, that would be me. I left that out earlier. My bad. The sun is changing just as much or perhaps more than all of the planets. And the lack of coronal holes, not a complete dearth of them where we don't have any whatsoever, but there's certainly a difference in the way that the features on the sun are presenting themselves to the Earth, to the solar system, to the person observing. And this is precisely one of the things that we've dug deeper to in some of our books on our more in detailed shows. But yes, the sun is absolutely changing in that way. Now, his second question, this is one of the ones where we can observe it, we know for a fact it's happening, but the why is something of a mystery. I only have a couple of hypotheses for why there is what we've come to call the Earth-facing solar quiet. And indeed, it does appear, as we mentioned when we started the show, that Earth has been very lucky. There have been more solar flares, but we haven't had them directly aimed at Earth.
Yeah, they've gone off the side or something, side of the sun. Right?
Correct. No, exactly right. And what's interesting is they noticed something similar about 400 years ago during what's called the Maunder minimum. And it has since been thought that this is probably the case during a lot of periods throughout time in the solar history, where every few hundred years the sun basically takes it easy on Earth for a while. And it's very easy to observe. It's not easy to explain. Kind of like how the ancients could predict eclipses, but they thought the sun and moon were living gods that could get angry at them for their behavior and things like that. They could observe things and tell what was going on and what was to happen, but the why was elusive. They didn't really understand the mechanisms. The thing I have found most interesting is the periods that we know about in history when this has happened on the sun. There's one thing that really ties them together, and this is where things can get a little crazy. So, it is thought from ancient Chinese sunspot records that this happened about 800 years ago. And back then, that was right around the time when the worship of the sun globally among some of the more primitive species was starting to tick back up, even while Christianity and other Abrahamic religions were taking hold in the more civilized portions of society. In places like Australia, Africa, South America, there was a resurgence in worship of the sun, and it seemed that was a time it got shy. When it happened 400 years ago, and what I mentioned a minute ago as the Maunder minimum, that was when we went from a geocentric to a heliocentric thinking in science. All of a sudden, the world, almost overnight in the blink of an eye, stopped thinking of the Earth as the center of the universe and began to fully understand the greatness and the power of the sun. And it got quiet. Here we have it again happening now, and it actually started almost 1 year exactly after the launch of a new satellite called the Solar Dynamics Observatory. This is the beautiful sun images that are all these different colors that we can see. If anybody's seen any images of the sun in the news recently, before that, maybe there were a couple thousand people studying the sun or who really cared about what it was doing. And again, in the blink of an eye, there were millions of people appreciating the sun in the way that it had never been appreciated before. And once again, with that extra focus on the power and the impressiveness of the sun, it seems to be getting shy. Now, as I said, this is where things get a little crazy, because then you have to start asking yourself, okay, well, how could human consciousness begin to affect the sun? And the answer is, of course, that maybe these are just coincidences and we can't affect the sun. But then you also realize that human brain waves are just electromagnetic waves. And, even though it's at a minute scale, every thought we have translates to an electromagnetic wave that is emitted. If people have heard of alpha brain waves, beta brain waves, gamma brain waves, these waves don't stop when they hit our skull. They go out into the world and into the universe, and they affect things in a chain reaction. It's the same idea where with chaos theory, where a butterfly can flap its wings in one part of the world, and it's the difference between rain or sunshine on the other side of the world.
Ben, hold on. We're going to come back and wrap things up with final calls next. And we'll be back with final calls with Ben Davidson as we talk about space weather news in just a moment. Next hour, Erika Gabriel joins us, a professional spiritual medium, talking about the other side. In our phone call section with her, she will do readings. We'll tell you what to expect later on in the program. And welcome back. George Norrie back with Ben Davidson as we talk about climate change and space news. Ben, if the polar shifts change, would birds drop from the sky?
In certain circumstances, yes, they absolutely could. On a much larger scale, they will just find it much more challenging to make their seasonal migrations, which, of course, for a lot of bird species are pretty pivotal to their existence, and they're continuing to live. And this is what we were talking about earlier with the food chain. It's not just them, but people don't realize that insects, plants, the seeds from plants, marine creatures in the ocean, and even several mammals, they're all going to have issues like this when it comes to Earth's magnetic field changing and the magnetic pole shift.
What would happen to our compasses?
Well, it depends. Depending on what part of the world you're living in now, there are already some places where you can see a change in the compass. If you had been tracking your compass every day for several years or a couple decades in parts of Europe, you would notice a change. However, here in the United States, you're probably not going to notice too much. The direction that the magnetic North Pole is changing, it's moving directly away from us. So it's moving through the Arctic Ocean towards Siberia. And so if the thing that is making your compass point is 10 feet away from you, directly in front of you, or 1,000 miles away from you, but still directly in front of you, the compass is going to point in the same direction, and you won't have any idea that the pole is actually moving, because it only tells you one vector. It doesn't tell you how far away it is. It doesn't tell you how fast it's moving. It only tells you the direction in which it's going. And so here in the United States, in Canada, basically in this part of the world, it just looks like the pole is staying pretty much in the same position, but it's actually moving quite a bit.
Let's go back to the phones west of the Rockies. Jesse's with us in Durango, Colorado. Hey, Jesse, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure thing.
Regarding the shift and stuff in which we're talking about, I worked on projects, both military and contract, that 1947, there was a naval project that was working on the pole shift, and it was at that point in time maybe moving an inch or two a year. They figured by the time everything was said and done, the new equator was going to be between Alaska and Russia, and it's been under getting worse by the year. Now that we're set up with the North Pole now over the Four Corners area, Polaris, Big Dipper, Cassiopeia. They haven't ever come out of the. When I was growing up near Canada, they hadn't ever come out of northern Canada.
You following that, Ben?
Yeah, I am following that a bit. The changes in the magnetic field and the changes in the actual orientation of Earth, this is one of the more controversial topics, but it's also one of the more important ones. One of the hardest things for people to understand and hardest things for people to hear is when this thing gets to completion, the equator is not going to be where it is now. In fact, virtually nowhere on Earth will be where it is now. I'm not necessarily familiar with the project she was describing in the 40s, but there's another project that was going on in the 40s called Project Nanook in the Arctic, led by Major Maynard E. White. And thankfully for all of us, he did something that was a little bit illegal. He kept some of the documents that were supposed to be classified.
Another one, huh?
Yeah, not only from his expedition, but from the Pentagon meetings and the meetings with the Rand Corporation, where they were actually doing models of this. And the scariest short version of this is that when they started digging down into the Arctic, they found that there were alternating layers of tropical fossils, polar fossils, tropical fossils, polar fossils, separated by only about 10 to 12,000 years each, meaning that every 10,000 to 12,000 years, that area they were studying at the Arctic was at the equator. And then it went back to being at the polar region, and then it was in the tropics near the equator, and then it went back to the polar region. And there are several other instances of this kind of evidence around the world. But essentially what it means is because those times line up with the times in history when Earth's magnetic field changed like it is beginning to change now, it really implies that something as bad or even worse than what most people know as Earth's crust displacement theory is going to take place very, very rapidly, and it's going to change the face of the world as we know it.
Next up, Walter's with us in Pennsylvania. Walt, go ahead.
Hi, George. Talking to Ben, he said he's only 38 years old. He's like talking to our son, George. He was only born in 1984. I think I have shoes older than he is. So,
and you still wear them, Walter.
Yeah. George, I would say to Ben, perhaps what we need is a neutralization of the global power and communications grid, because, George, that would preclude our destroying ourselves with thermonuclear weapons. They wouldn't be able to launch the missiles, George. So I was telling Tom, maybe, it's reminiscent of the classic 51 science fiction movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still. So, maybe that's what we need, George. George, we're in a sad state of affairs, George, in this world. As you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I was telling Tom, I'm much more frightened now. And, of course, in 1962, I was only 11 years old.
We had diplomacy in 62. We don't have that today.
That's right, George. George, in closing, I would just like to say to Ben, I'm not saying that he's an evolution denier. I don't think he is. But, even without the prodigious fossil evidence and even without the evidence of global evolution, we don't have to look down in the Grand Canyon to ascertain that evolution really happened, George. As I've often said, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, George. We literally evolve in the womb. The spermatozoa and the ova are the human bugs from which we evolved in the womb, George. The DNA molecule remembers evolution, George, literally.
All right, Walter, thank you for that. Ben, you want to comment on any of that?
Sure thing. Both evolution and something else are real. There is evidence of massive jumps and massive changes to DNA and species that can't be explained by evolution, but you can't deny evolution exists. For those who believe in a God, I would say, what kind of fantastic, magnificent engineer would create a world where they had to then tinker with every atom and everything? Would they not just set processes in motion so that they would evolve and change over time? And so in this way, both can coexist. In terms of the first thing he said, boy, I thought I was going to get controversial with the Earth crust displacement theory. In the old movie he referenced, Earth was going to be destroyed, and all humans were going to be destroyed, and we were saved, but we had to pay a terrible price for it. And unfortunately, losing the global power grids, we've spent a good portion of the last 100 or so minutes talking about how terrible a price we will pay to lose these critical systems that allow us to live. But what happens if we don't lose them? Do we enter nuclear war? Do we continue becoming a more and more degenerate society? Do we continue to have more and more opportunistic taking advantage of our children? Do we continue to become more divided as a people? Have we reached the point of no return? And is the only way to get back to what we are meant to be, to wipe a lot off the table and start anew and pay that terrible price so that we don't pay the ultimate price due to ourselves? And I can't sit here and say one way or another where I fall. I know I wouldn't want to be the one to have to make that decision for the entire world.
Those are big questions, man.
Yeah, exactly. I have to recognize that it might be something that's necessary in order for us not to be completely annihilated.
Let's go to Sean in Stockton, California. Welcome to the program. Sean, go ahead.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen.
Hi.
I'd like to get back to the Earth's core. And the oceans have this circulation that sends the waters throughout the globe. And I was curious if the core does anything similar in that respect. And does the molten metal in the core require oxygen to heat? And where does the oxygen come from? Thank you.
It really doesn't require oxygen to be heated. Simple pressure and friction can cause heat without the presence of oxygen. It's a little different from creating fire and things like that. What happens deep down below will inevitably affect everything above it, whether that's over the short term or the long term, subtly or in fantastic ways. What we do know is that there is something changing in our planet, and it is changing from the core all the way out to the surface here and the top of the atmosphere. And we know from the evidence that this has happened before, and we know that the results are pretty devastating, at least here for the living creatures on the planet. And so a lot of those questions, they're fantastic questions. They come from a really intelligent place. But again, we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the bottom of the ocean. We know even less about what's going on at the core. We do a lot of guessing as scientists. What we do know is that the evidence we have here today suggests that what's happening today has happened before. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it is absolutely catastrophic for the surface where we live, where the animals live. And that might be as much as we know this cycle before we have to try it all again.
Tom in Petaluma, California. Tom, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my calls. It's great to hear this show. I posted it on your Twitter feed for the news tonight. The Union Concerned Scientists just published a blog on how to pay for the power grid. for redoing it. And I thought you might have an interest in that.
I will do that. I'll look that up.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's two other things, though. One was, earlier today, I was wondering, how could you tell the difference between natural occurrences, be it from the sun or the spinning of the center of the Earth, or weather weapons? That's just one question. The other one was on the morality question, the ethics in our country. If you're aware of it, but the mayor in East Palestine, Ohio, has been having a problem there with vinyl chloride, and it seems that some of the
from that derailment,
tolerable levels were with the railroad wreck. Some of the tolerable levels were reduced for what allowed to be exposed to, and they're a little upset about that. But there's also I posted it on your newsfeed because in the posting, the CDC has taken open comments from the public into May about the vinyl chloride. And I thought it was important because he tried to do a news thing today, and I hear boo about it in the national news media. So I thought I'd plug that for him.
Okay, let's get some thoughts before we're out of time here, Ben. Thoughts on weather weapons. What do you think of that?
So it's certainly on the government's wish list, that's for sure. This is one of those topics where the truth is found somewhere in between what they would like us to believe on CNN and the more extreme theories that you can find on the internet. The math and the science don't add up to some of the more grandiose claims of what they're able to do on the weather. They're able to tinker with it. But essentially, there's more energy unleashed in one mild thunderstorm than we really have the power to inject if we basically used all of Earth's electricity generation aimed at one storm. And so we can also look into the past and see that what's happening right now is not unprecedented. It's not unexpected given what's happening on the sun, what's happening on the Earth. And so essentially, over time, ants can make an anthill. They can build giant things, underground, but can they move a mountain in a day? The answer is no. And one of the things that is the deception of omission or the deception of misdirection, which we also talked about earlier today, is making us believe that it's anything other than what's actually happening.
Good point. Ben, come back again. Let's not let 4 years go by. Up next, Erika Gabriel joins us as we talk about messages from what messages are for us from the other side. In a moment, Erika Gabriel joins us, professional spiritual medium on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, Erika Gabriel with us. First time professional spiritual medium, teacher with more than 15 years of experience helping others find purpose, direction, and the strength to overcome life's challenges. Her mission is to spiritually empower as many people as possible by teaching them how to unlock their own connection to spirit. Erika has performed thousands of live readings. She'll do some of those tonight and appeared in the New York Times, Forbes, Goop, InStyle, in addition to hosting the very popular podcast, You Are Not Alone. Erika, welcome to the program.
Hello, George. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm looking forward to this. How did you get involved in spiritual mediumship?
It's interesting. It really got involved with me, I should say. So from a really young age, I started feeling, seeing, and sensing spirit and things that really weren't there, quote unquote, for most people. So around the age of 7, I moved into a new house with my mom and stepdad. And I started seeing a little boy and feeling him and sensing him around the house, our new house. And my parents kind of started asking around a little bit, didn't really know what to do. And they had found out that a little boy had drowned on the property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So from an early age, there was this awareness that there's a whole heck of a lot going on that, we can't necessarily see.
At that age, were you comfortable or were you scared?
Oh, my gosh, George, I was so afraid because as a little kid, you didn't know really what was going on, and I thought, I'm just a haunted person. So I think I slept on my parents' floor out of fear until I was like 12 years old. I was afraid of the dark and afraid of being alone. So I was very scared, yes.
Did you see the little boy?
I did. And, you know, my parents still live in that house, and I love that house. It's a great place. It's very warm. I can still sense him even today, many, many years later, when I go into that home.
I was going to say, he's still there, isn't he?
He is. He absolutely is. And it's, you know, listen, it's not common that a soul or a spirit gets really stuck like that.
Erika, did you ever see a picture of him? I'm wondering if he looked like what you saw.
You know, I haven't, and it's so interesting that you asked that. I have not seen a picture of him, and I haven't further researched him. It's just this this energy that I know is there, but I don't know too much about him. That's so interesting that you asked that.
Then how did you begin to develop your mediumship?
Yeah, so I really, you know, from there, went on a wild goose chase, right, through I guess my 20s, and really started looking into religions, all religions and all kinds of philosophies, to really understand what is this? What is this? And there was no, you know, there weren't a lot of mediums around or on TV. I had to really figure out what it was. And I still, throughout that time, was having very intense mediumistic experiences and even delivering messages to people, but they would kind of come at random. And finally, I saw a medium, and she said, "You know you're a medium, right?" And I was like, "No, but yes, but no, but thank you. You know, thanks for the help, because now I understand more." And it was a great moment, and one that I had been waiting for. And I lived right off of Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles, and within 2 weeks, I had people knocking on my door for readings.
Wow.
It was wild. And at that point, I had to figure out, who am I talking to? And I had to train myself to understand when I was talking to someone's loved one, when I was talking to an angel, when I was talking to a spirit guide, and when I had bumped into a, quote, haunting. And I really had to work very intensely to have boundaries and to understand exactly who I was talking to, so that I became a really clear medium, and a medium, really someone that people were safe connecting to.
Have you ever been demonically tricked?
Absolutely not, because I have trained myself intensely, and now I'm, you know, well into my career. And I have very specific and very clear boundaries. So if I start to feel negative energy, I have an absolute awareness of what that feels like.
How easy is it for you, Eric, to tap into this mode?
At this point, you know what? It's simple. It's something I've been doing for so long. It's not easy kind of in general, but for me, I have a lot of kind of steps that I do to connect in with spirit, and now it's kind of part of me, and it's part of who I am. So I have to be in a comfortable position, a safe place, and I really open and close the door to spirit. So I'm not the medium that's like running up to someone at a restaurant trying to read for them, right?
Exactly.
I have my doors shut at that point, and I'm just enjoying my life. And then I really focus on opening the door and really getting people's permission, right? So I don't read for people that don't want to be read. And if people don't want to be read, they shouldn't. So if someone really wants a reading, and then I open the door for them and really just open the door to what is available to them.
Now, when we take calls next hour, people can ask you, obviously, about mediumship and what you do, but you'll also do a reading. And you need their birth date and just a specific question?
Yes, their birthday, their first name, and a specific question. And the reason why a specific question is so important is because, you know, I'm not doing a full 40, 50-minute reading for that person, right? So it's just a moment we get to connect. I get to go in and connect to spirit for them. So a specific question is always best when we only have one question together.
Yeah, 2 minutes tops.
Yeah, right. So it's so important to kind of focus the energy on the area that the person wants to focus on. And what's amazing about mediumship is, you know, as I said, I work with angels and spirit guides, and at times loved ones who've crossed over come through. So what's amazing about this type of mediumship is that whatever area the person wants to connect on, spirit is there for them and responds. It's not just one part of spirit that I focus on. And that's why I trained so hard to really understand and how to get the best information and the clearest information and utilize all of spirit to support people here on Earth.
Erika, what's really the difference between a spirit guide and a spirit who just wants to come to you and give you information?
Yeah, so a spirit that comes to you that wants to give you information is usually the person's loved one that has crossed over.
Okay.
And really what's so amazing about loved ones is, you know, when someone comes for a reading, I don't have their loved one with me. They have their loved one with them.
Uh-huh.
And when I open to read for them, their loved one comes through with them, and I'm able to connect with that person, right? Thank goodness I don't carry everyone's loved ones with me walking around with millions of people.
Oh, my God, you'd
right?
never get anything done.
I know. So it's so great because they're with them. And in understanding that your loved ones are with you, you can begin to connect with your loved ones, your own loved ones, begin to understand any symbols or signs that they give you, and really feel that powerful connection that continues on in spirit. A spirit guide is, I almost say, like they're like a Sherpa, right? So when you go to hike an amazing mountain, you get someone that's done it before, that's really skilled. And a spirit guide is just like that. They are guides that help us through this life and through this incredible journey of our souls. And everyone has a spirit guide. I've never met someone that didn't have a spirit guide.
Living or dead, living or dead, in terms of the person who has the spirit guide. Could be both.
Can you ask that again? I'm sorry, my friend.
Somebody living or dead who has the spirit guide.
Oh, yes, living. We all have spirit guides, and we can connect with them anytime we want. They really meet us in our intuition, right? Our voice within us. Our spirit guides can work with us there. And they're not our puppet masters. They're not controlling us. They don't boss us around. They're there when we need them.
Are you a walk-in? And by that I mean where a spirit walks into your body and literally takes it over and communicates that way?
Nope. That is not me at all. And in fact, I'm very in charge of my body. I'm very in charge of kind of who I'm talking to. So I have really, really specific and clear boundaries. And again, that's so I can live a wonderful life. So I work, every time I read for someone, my spirit guide is with me. And I'm working with my personal spirit guide to help me connect with that person's information, loved one, spirit guide, angel. So I am completely protected and safe.
Is there a heaven? Is there a hell?
You know what? This is a tough one. And I've worked really long on this to just really understand the answer. But we actually all go to the same place, which is such a hard thing for so many people to digest, because there are so many people that have done horrible things, right? And we all go to the same place. And we all go there and have this thing that I call review. We sit down and we review our life, our life's journey, the things we've done in life. You know, our soul, before our soul comes to this earth element, which I call earth classroom, our soul sets out a series of lessons that they want to learn. And so we review how we did on these lessons. And, you know, I also believe that we also review the effect that we've had on others and what that's like and what the things that we've done. So someone that's caused incredible harm, I don't know that they get out of review because they're having to experience what they caused. So is that hell? No. But do they have to feel what they created here on Earth? Absolutely.
I was going to say someone who, let's say, might be a mass shooter who kills
Correct.
a handful of people and then commits suicide.
Yes.
What happens to that person's soul? Where does it go?
Well, it's an interesting question because, we're talking about someone that has done something horrible, and then we're also talking about suicide. So, again, they still go to the same place, but they're having to review all of the harm and pain they caused, not just the people that they shot, but they have to experience the pain, loss, and sadness of those family members as well. Now, in terms of suicide, that's a really important question because, unfortunately, during this time in our human experience, many people, unfortunately, are committing suicide. I've connected more families with someone who's committed suicide in the past 2 years than I have in my entire career. So I just want to say that because anyone listening that's, experienced suicide in their family, you're not alone. And I also want to say to people that this life is so important, and it's so important to be here, and that your soul chose to be here, and you have a beautiful purpose to shine here on Earth. So I just wanted to add that as well. But even suicide, we go to the same place. The thing I've seen with suicide is that many of the lessons that we may have not been able to complete while our soul was here in their life on Earth, we will have to do again. It's not a punishment, but our soul wants to do them again.
Do we reincarnate?
Absolutely. 100%. And in fact, sometimes, I'm not, specifically a past life regressionist, but sometimes in readings, past lives do show up. And the reason why is because there's something in a past life that is currently affecting the current life. So sometimes we hear things from our past life and we're able to let go of them, let them kind of, leave our soul in a way, and then we can move on. So like, for an example, I've, read for people with debilitating fears. And it has come up, say they're afraid, someone was really afraid of crossing bridges. And it was debilitating because there's bridges everywhere. And her guide showed me a past life where she was actually murdered on a bridge and then thrown from the bridge.
Oh, geez.
Yes.
Are hauntings real, and why do they occur if they are?
Yeah. So, yes, hauntings are real. And not all hauntings are created equal. So there's many different layers and levels to spirit, and there's many different layers and levels of ghosts. So they're not all the same. So for an example, if you go into a place that's many, hundreds of years old, right, there are imprints of energy there. It doesn't mean there's a person stuck there walking around, right? It can you can walk into a room and feel, wow, this place is old. Or you can walk in sometimes to a room and feel, oh, this is spooky, right? It's because there's an imprint there of former energy. So that is, in essence, some people think, oh, gosh, this is a haunting. And it's really not. It's kind of the energetic imprint of that space.
You've asked. Go ahead, Erika.
No. Yeah, no. And then at times, which is very rare, believe it or not, there are stuck energy that couldn't quite cross over. But believe me, it's actually more rare than people know.
I remember the movie Poltergeist. Do you remember that original movie?
I've heard of it, but I have not let myself watch it, George, to be honest.
Oh, why not?
You know what? You wouldn't know it, but as Erika, just plain old Erika, I'm really a chicken. I'm really scared of scary movies.
Well, in the beginning of the movie, something was happening. There was a paranormal experience, and the medium was trying to get the spirit to go into the light, And then all of a sudden, the medium changed and said, don't go in the light, don't go in the light. Why would she change that?
Oh, my gosh. You know what? I need to watch that movie. Okay, I have to be very brave and watch that movie.
Yep.
I don't know why she would have said that. I think, the idea about going to the light is really if something is stuck and they're saying, cross over.
And what is the
get
light?
out of here.
What is the light?
Yeah, so when people die, and countless and millions, really, I mean, you can Google it, is that when people cross over, they see a bright white light. And it is spirit. It's the other side that they're kind of seeing and recognizing. And that's the light, the white light. It's interesting you ask that. And, there is this incredible, powerful surge of positive energy happening on the planet at all times. Yes, of course, there is a lot of negative energy as well. But even here in life, right, not even talking about the other side, just talking about our life experience, it's important that we continue to go towards the light. What you focus on grows. So if you're constantly focusing on the negative and the darkness, that will grow in your life. So the idea is, not only go towards the light as a soul and a spirit, but go towards the light in your life as a human as well.
Erika, we're going to take this quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about this energetic shift going on the planet where I feel as if something is very weird going on. People are acting really strange, but we'll take that. Erika's website is her name, erikagabriel.com, linked up at coasttocoastam.com. We're going to take your calls next hour with Erika Gabriel. We're going to do them as readings. She will need your name, which I'll give her, and your birth date, which you'll give to Tom, and then just ask her a specific question, if you would. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. George Norrie back with Erika Gabriel. Her website is her name, linked up at coasttocoastam.com. That was my father's name, by the way, Erika Gabriel. And my sister took his first name and used it for her last name.
That's amazing.
So
that is amazing. I love that.
She goes by Gail Gabriel.
Well, hi, Gail.
There's only two of you ever on the planet.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
So let's talk a little bit about what I'm sensing and get your take on this.
Sure.
People are acting strange. They're acting weird. They're acting uptight. They're doing bizarre things. Do you sense that, Erika?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we are undergoing this huge energetic shift on the planet. I mean, everything that happens energetically also happens physically, right? So we're seeing all kinds of shifts and changes happening on the planet and within people as well.
And is that a good thing or a bad thing?
So it is a wonderful thing. And it also has some, quote, negative results, right? So people are uncomfortable with the old patterns, the old paradigms. Everyone wants change. And this is coming out in their own lives, right? We're going, wait a minute, I don't just live to work. I want something else for my life, right? So it's coming out in lives. It's coming out in the world, right? There's more separation. People are really struggling to connect with others. And so things are shifting and changing. I have also never had more people call me and say, I am having intuition, I'm connecting with angels, or I feel like I'm having all these spiritual experiences happening. So there's many, many shifts. And it is a good thing. Yet while we're shifting, there are some negative ramifications, like we're seeing separation, or like people going, oh my gosh, this is awful. I'm so uncomfortable. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I know I want to change and shift and change my job or change this and that, but I just don't know how. So a lot of people are feeling really, really stuck.
What, as a parent, do you tell your youngster who might be watching television and then he or she hears stories of nukes and this and that, like we did back in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis? What do you tell these kids?
Yeah. So I tell kids, and my kids in particular, they see things on the news, or my son has such a huge heart for homeless crisis. And I always tell him, you know what? Do you know what is the best way to be able to feel good or even to help homeless people? I tell him, you go to school and you study and you do wonderful in your life. you will be able to help more homeless people than you can imagine, right? So the idea is for everyone is to know how incredible you are, how powerful you are, how important your life is, and how focusing on feeling good, getting healthy, mind, body, and spirit helps you really find your purpose, why you're here, and helps you shine that purpose. And when you're shining your light bright, it does affect the world, right? If we're all feeling terrible and have dim lights, right, then the world starts to kind of energetically go down. So you really focusing on yourself and getting yourself to a good place, that vibrates out. That affects others more than you can even know.
What is an energetic shift?
An energetic shift is when a massive amount of people are, quote, waking up or seeing things differently all at the same time. So the old ways, the old patterns, the old paradigms that we live in, the old type of consciousness that we were living in is no longer serving everyone. And so massive amount, millions and millions and millions of people are shifting, are changing, are kind of seeing, gosh, there has to be a better way, and that's all happening at the same time. So energetically, we're shifting in a big way, right? And that's another amazing thing to think about. You know, your energy really affects the whole, just like I was talking about. You are that important.
Can anybody become a medium, Eric?
Yes. I mean, the idea is that everyone has an amazing direct line to spirit and the other side, right? Now, listen, anyone can do anything, and that's what's amazing. But thank goodness not everyone is supposed to be a medium, right? We need doctors, teachers, lawyers, all the things, right? So not everyone is destined to be a medium or destined to really go into that path and activate their connection in that kind of way, right? So not everyone is supposed to be a medium, but everyone can go in and connect to spirit and connect to God.
Why is it important to connect?
It's important to connect because, first of all, when you connect, you start to be able to have this inner guide system, inner guidance, where you can go within and listen to your inner voice and let that guide you. Let that guide your life. And really have that system. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? How should I continue on? Because remember, we're these spiritual beings. We're these souls that chose to come here to this life. So connecting with yourself and connecting with a higher power guides our life and makes our life really feel like it has meaning and gives us strength to go on and really helps us see that there's a bigger picture for our lives and for the lives of everyone, really.
Erika, tell us about your new course.
Thank you so much for asking. So my new course is called The Way. And the reason why I created The Way, first of all, I downloaded it from Spirit, right? So it was another one of those moments where it's like I didn't have a choice. I had to download this information. But The Way is a way that helps people identify the blocks in their path that are blocking their way, helps them identify it, gives them tools to move through those blocks, and then helps them create an incredible vision for their life, and then helps them match energetically that vision. So it's an incredible tool. It's 3 lessons. You can start it today. I mean, it's available right now on my website. And it's a powerful and sacred course to help you move forward in your life and really find your path and your purpose for being here on Earth.
Once people find their purpose, then what do they do?
So when people find their purpose, then sometimes we get in a whole bunch of new blocks, and that kind of comes up in the second lesson. But we have to really work towards our purpose, but in a way that feels good, which I know sounds so simple, but really going towards our purpose should feel exciting and should feel good. The other thing that happens is people kind of start to feel their purpose and they feel there's something more for them, and they can see that there's, this incredible purpose, and they want to kind of blow up their life, right? They're like, I'm going to quit my job and chase my purpose. And I always tell people, don't do that. Don't do that. Take it one step at a time. There is a way to start to activate your purpose, start to move towards where you want to go in a way that feels in control and that really builds you step by step towards getting to that purpose, right? So keep your job. Don't blow up your life, and start to show up for your purpose every single day. And that can be in small ways or in big ways.
Erika, why is it important to tap into spirit for this?
Yeah, for finding your purpose, yes. It's really important because your soul knows why you came here. Your soul knows. Your soul knows why it's here. Your soul, this is a quote from Michael Beckwith that I love. Your soul is, quote, loaded and coded like a computer with your soul's purpose and your reason for coming here. You're loaded and coded. It's in you. You also have loaded and coded within you this incredible connection to spirit. So when you go in and you start to remember the true purpose of your soul, why you're here, the fact that you have this incredible divine connection to spirit, to God, whatever resonates with you, when you go in and remember, you can continue to walk your path and walk your purpose. So finding a way to connect with spirit, which really, if you go within and you quiet your mind, that's connecting right there. It's right there within you. There's no magic pill or magic place you go to. Turning within will connect you with your intuitive voice, and it's there that you're connected to spirit, and you can begin to really watch your life get supercharged, activated, and watch yourself move forward.
Are you happy being a medium?
Oh, I'm so happy being a medium. I am so happy being a medium. Every single day I wake up, and, even if it's a tough morning, right, I just think, gosh, why am I here? What's my intention? And it's like, well, I'm here to connect and help people and connect people with incredible messages to help them move on in their lives. And it's a beautiful, beautiful purpose, and I love being a medium. It's a wonderful path.
Tell us about your podcast, You Are Not Alone.
Yeah, my podcast, You Are Not Alone. So that started in 2020, and it was actually offered to me a spot to do this podcast. And would you know I had never listened to a podcast before that time?
Really?
I'm like, a podcast? Yeah, I'm like, a podcast? Tell me what this is. And I just started doing it, and it's just taken off. It's a wonderful podcast that connects people with all kinds of ideas about spirit, spirituality. I have fantastic guests. And I also do a lot of solo episodes as well that are very focused episodes that answer, life's questions, right? I have podcasts about ghosts. I have podcasts about life and death, destiny. And it's a great place to go and feel seen, feel included. And there's all kinds of different, people that come on that talk about their journey. And that has made people feel really good and really included in their journey and their spiritual search.
What creates a ghost?
Yeah, so the creation of ghosts, like I said, is we can get these imprints of energy. We can also get, again, something that's stuck. And what happens is there is something tethering them to their old life. So they're almost not here, not there, right? I'll tell you a quick story, George. I was reading for a woman whose brother had crossed over in a horrible car accident. And I saw him die in the car accident, and then he kind of got up out of his body, and I saw him begin to walk down the street because he went, oh, God, my car's wrecked. I got to walk home. And I saw him walk out of his body and walk home. Now, as he started to walk home, he saw his grandpa who had crossed over. His grandpa said, come on, kid, you're done. Come with me to the light. And he was able to cross over. But what was fascinating, when I told the woman this story, she said, that is just unbelievable that you said that. I said, why? And she said, because we found his keys and his wallet halfway down the street.
Oh, geez.
So he had really not known that he had crossed over at that moment. And, that can also create a ghost if at that point he had not crossed over. He didn't go.
I wouldn't, aside from dreams, you go to sleep, you wake up, you realize 6 to 8 hours have gone by. Is that a little like dying? But it's longer?
Yeah, I mean, I don't associate sleep with dying. First of all, just on a human level, we need to rest our cells. We need to rejuvenate, regenerate, right? But it's interesting you ask that, because at times when we go to sleep, first of all, we're just dreaming, right? So our subconscious mind takes over, and we're kind of working things out that are buried in our subconscious. But, I have done this thing called astral jumping, where you're actually traveling while you're asleep. And I used to do that not purposely, kind of early on in my mediumship, and I would wake up exhausted, and I would say to my guides, okay, I'm good. I don't want to do that. I need rest, right? You want me to do all these readings and work with you? I'm not going, astral jumping. And what had happened was I started going into other people's experiences and almost serving as a guide and helping them. And I'm like, I can't do this during sleep hours. So I didn't feel like I was dying by any means, but there is, travel. People do travel to other realms and other experiences when they're asleep. And I know that sounds wild and even far-fetched, but it's real.
Now, when we take calls next hour, you want their birth dates. Quick question is why? You're not an astrologer, so what do you need a birth date for?
Correct. So there are billions of people, right, on Earth, and the birthday and the name really connects me with that person and makes sure that my guides really know who's there and pinpoints, right? There may be, a couple million Jackies in the world, but with that exact birthday, I'm able to really hone in and focus just on that person's energy.
Okay,
it gives me that specific kind of imprint of who that person is.
Erika's website, again, is her name, Erika, ERIKA, Gabriel.com, linked up at coasttocoastam.com. And where have you been? How come this is your first time on the program?
I know. This is such a wonderful day. I'm so happy to be with you, really.
How did we find you?
So you found me through Gaia.
That's right.
Yep, through Gaia. And originally, I believe that you heard me on my podcast and a couple of other podcasts that I've done, and we just had this great connection. And I'm so happy that it created this wonderful moment in time that we're able to talk and that I'm able to connect with your incredible listeners.
Well, you're doing a great job, and they're looking forward to talking to you. Try to keep your phone call to about 2 minutes a person, okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Many, many people. And you've been doing this since you were 7 years old?
Yes. Isn't that wild? This is really, it's a calling. It's a soul calling. And I know I've done this through many, many lifetimes.
Well, that's a way to do it, to be sure. And since you've been doing this, have you ever felt you wish you weren't in a certain situation?
I have, actually. Absolutely. Definitely more earlier on in my career where I just didn't feel as clear. But I have been in situations where I have seen someone was going to cross over, and that has been really challenging. I'm a very positive and energetic reader. I focus on the light, right? But things have come through that were unbelievably uncomfortable. And in that moment, I'm just like, okay, I'm good. I'm out of here.
All right, Erika, we're going to take a break and come back and take an hour of calls with you next on Coast to Coast. Okay, this is the interactive hour. We'll take your calls with Erika Gabriel. If you have a specific question about mediumship, just ask. If you want a reading, we need your name and your birth date. I'll give it to her, and then you will ask a specific question. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, Erika Gabriel with us. Erika, you're going to have some fun this hour interacting with our listeners. They are fantastic.
I'm so looking forward to it, and I know we're going to have a great time. I can't wait to connect with everyone.
Here we go. And Tom is getting texts and tweets from people already. Tom, what do you have?
Hey, Erika, there's a woman named Linda. She's from Ontario, Canada. Her birth date is 6/11/47. and she would like to know from this point on, how will her life move forward?
And how do you connect? Do you connect quick?
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for that question. So when I'm connecting with your name and with your birthday, I just feel, and I feel like I got one hit after another, right? So there were a lot of things that kept coming that you felt really, it was a challenge. There were so many things that were so challenging over and over again. And I hear you kind of asking, like, how much more can I take? When are things going to ease up? And there's this feeling of like, I need a break, right? I need a breakthrough. And it was interesting. I kept on seeing the number 24, right? So I think 2023 is getting better for you. I think things are getting on the right path. And then 2024, even 2025, is when you're going to start that kind of that experience of, quote, darkness or trouble will really start passing through. And 24, 25, much better feelings. I even feel like there's this desire to possibly move. So that could be in your realm at that time as well. So you're getting there. Don't stop here, right? If you're going through struggle, keep going. Don't get stuck there. You're doing a wonderful job, and things will ease up and get better for you. So during this time, stay calm, stay cool, and keep moving forward. Things will kind of start to shift. I want you to also keep your mind focused on where you do want to go, what you do want to see unfold in your life, instead of talking about what you don't want, right? You and the universe know what you don't want. Focus on what you do want. Stay really focused on where you want to go. Sometimes when we're worried or we're stressed, we start emotionally even rehearsing things that we don't want to have happen. So keep your mind on how you want things to go. 24, 25, all opening up. You're doing a great job. Stay with it, and all will be well.
Super.
Thank you so much for calling in, Linda.
Erika, what has Spirit shown you about destiny? What is that?
Oh, yeah. So destiny is a great question. So, listen, I'm wearing a sweatshirt and a scarf right now, right? It was not my destiny to wear this outfit today, right? There's, not every detail is pre-planned or destined. So much of life is choose our own adventure. But we do have certain things in our lives that are destined, right? So I've read for people that have, 100 things in their destiny. And there's a lot of things that are there to really support them and help them learn whatever lesson they came here to learn. And I've read for people that have one main thing, right? They were destined to be a doctor, right? There was hundreds of people they had to save, and that was a huge part of their destiny, right? So everyone has certain destinies, and a lot of life is also choose your own adventure.
Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Charles in Sacramento, California. Let me give you his birth date. 2/27/70, 2/27/70. He's got a birthday coming up next week. Hey, Charles, welcome to the program.
Boy, Tom's great. I really appreciate him. He's so great.
He's a good guy. Good guy.
So my question is, my mother passed away Sunday, so, I'll just kind of make it short.
Sorry to hear that.
Bleed all over the radio. Her name is Carol Collette Parks, and she passed away Sunday, and I just wanted to know that I miss her. And I'm Roman Catholic for life, and I found myself Googling, like, can Catholics, host seances on, and, like, just so weak, and, like, so I'm just struggling like that. I'd like a little bit, help with that, and just let my mom know I love her.
All right, Erika, go ahead.
Hi, Charles. Thank you so much for your question. Really quickly, you do not need to host a seance, my friend, right? You really, really don't. Your mom, when you want to work with your mom or connect with your mom, if you can quiet down and go inside, you will be able to connect with her. Your mom really wants to connect with you through positive memories. Isn't that amazing? So through your memories. So when you think of an amazing memory you have with your mom, something you did together, a meal you had together, these great memories, and you start thinking of those memories, that's when she comes. That's when she's near. You know, the other thing that she's telling me to tell you is, you know, you're really thinking a lot about her passing. And she asks if you can think some about her life, not her death. And think about the times that you had. I also have to say, I love your mom, and she's a lovely person. And she's literally saying, my son was the best son I could have ever asked for.
How about
he was
that?
So there for me. He was so there for me up until the end. He never gave up on me. And he thinks that I did so much for him. She says, but, oh, my gosh, he did so much for me. She really just adores you and thinks the world of you. I don't know too much about Roman Catholicism, but she's showing me like going into a church and almost like there's candles to light there. I don't know if that's what that is in church, where you can light a candle in someone's honor. She's showing me that. If there isn't that in your church, then you would light a candle for her at home, which will help connect you with her and help bring back kind of those connections and those memories. She is, I don't exactly know how she crossed, but it's like, oh my gosh, I am so relieved to be in spirit. I feel so much better. My body feels better. She feels like it's almost like, Charles, if you think of a bird in a bird cage, it's almost like the feeling I'm getting is like that cage was opened and the bird flew out. And she's explaining that the cage was her body and the bird is her soul. That's kind of the vision I'm getting. And so she feels so good that she was able to let go of the body. I love your mom, too. She tells me, please tell my son I'm not lonely. There is so many people here. So a lot of people went before her. She's not lonely, and she had an amazing kind of reunion. But she loves you. She admires you. She says you completely were there for her, and she doesn't want you to be sad. Please, honey, she says, please, don't be sad. I'm okay.
Erika, do you see death before it happens?
You know, I have in the past. I don't know how that will serve people to know their exact death. It has come through before. You know, the amazing thing about death is we're all going to do it, right?
We're all going to get there sometime.
Exactly.
No rush, but we're all going to get there sometime.
Exactly. No one's getting out of here alive, right? But yes, you know, it does come up at times. And also things like accidents come up. So, you know, sometimes I've seen people driving and they're not paying attention while they're driving at all. And then I will see kind of an angel come in and block an accident or kind of shake them awake kind of grab the wheel.
I've seen that happen. I've heard it happen.
Yes.
Let's go to Barry in Virginia, 1945. Barry in Virginia, east of the Rockies. Hello, Barry. Take it away.
Hello. I was on your show years and years ago, and I talked about having been with three other guys, and we actually had a very close encounter with flying saucer, but it mostly seemed to be related to me. And what I'd like to know is, was that foreseeable? I mean, is there anything that you can sense about me that would have attracted this flying saucer? I was so close that I had a pair of binoculars and I could see the things that, well, I could see where the power supply of the craft was.
Is he like a magnet, Erika?
Well, yeah, you know, listen, some people are more receptive than others. So, for an example, if there's a flying saucer going by, some people cannot process that information. So it doesn't mean it's not there, but it's like it's so unbelievable to our conscious mind that we almost don't see it. So when you're aware of other or flying saucers or different things, when you have that consciousness or that awareness, at times you'll be able to see things that others just can't process. So it's a processing, it's an awareness. So I feel like our friend Barry really kind of had that awareness, whether he was super into it or not, but he kind of had that awareness in his mind, in his consciousness, whereas maybe the other people that he was with just didn't really see it or didn't really consciously connect with it. But Barry was open and he saw it. Now, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. And I'm going to just say that in general. You know, fear is really a breeding ground for more fear.
Sure.
So if you're interested in these things, totally cool, but really keep that fear in check, right? That's not helping. Fear doesn't help.
First-time caller Shannon, Omaha, Nebraska, 51972. 51972. Shannon's with us. Hey, Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm sorry about my voice.
Oh, that's okay.
I have laryngitis, and I was wondering what the cause of my health problems is.
The laryngitis or something else?
Well, I don't know if it's laryngitis, but I have lost my voice due to shortness of breath. And so I've been to a couple of hospitals, and they can't figure out what's going on.
How's your heart? Your heart's okay?
Yeah, they say it is.
Erika, take it away.
Okay, so yes, this is Shannon in Nebraska. You know, gosh, I have to say, and I think why people can't figure out what it is, I am getting this message that it's environmental. So there's a couple things that are going on. I think she is extremely allergic to mold.
Could be in her house.
You know what? I don't know if the exposure is in the home or where she works. Even, you know, listen, when leaves fall, right, they fester mold as well. So it's environmental. I think there may be mold in her home or where she works. It's somewhere where she is a lot. I think she's also going outside, and there's a lot of mold where she is. It's like it's in the air. It's like there's nothing wrong actually in her body temple. Now, I have to say this when I talk about anything medical. Listen to your doctors more than me, right? Listen to your doctors. Seek medical care. And I can only tell you this, what I'm getting from Spirit, but it felt very environmental, and that's causing that restriction in her lungs. And I am very much connecting with mold for her.
Now, when you tap into Spirit for her, is it somebody who was a relative who died, or is it just a general spirit?
It is her spirit guide. So my spirit guide right now that I do every single reading with, by the way, so that I have guidance and protection and that I'm really clear in my words. My spirit guide is talking to her spirit guide, and her spirit guide is telling my spirit guide she's allergic to mold.
Let's go to Jean in Quebec, Canada, March 21st, 1961, 3/21/61. Welcome to the program, Jean.
Hi, how are you?
We're fine. What is your question for Erika?
Well, my mother died 3 years ago, and she left a few wills, and now the family's fighting over them. So I don't know if she might be able to do some detective work to find out if there's another will, because they're all fighting over the wills that are here now.
How many did she write?
I think there's a fourth. And that's what they're all talking about. She claimed there's a fourth.
But
so I don't know
three
if she
for
wants
sure.
to help from the other
Okay,
side.
Erika, take it away.
Oh my goodness! Thank you for asking this. So let me first start off by saying this is, excuse me, one of the top 10 things I get asked. I cannot tell you. Say that again, George.
The wills, right?
Absolutely, it's unbelievable. And what happens is, excuse me, what happens is, you know, when someone crosses over, that's a cornerstone of the family, like Jean, I believe her name was Jean, yes? Jean's mom?
Jean, yeah.
And when something happens like that and a cornerstone gets removed from a family dynamic, sometimes the other pieces fall.
So even if there were peace and harmony when her mom was there, she kind of went to spirit, removed that cornerstone, and the pieces started falling. And it can create a lot of conflict. So I can tell Jean, number one, her mom is heartbroken that the family is in conflict. And in fact, with certain relationships within the family, I believe with a sibling in particular, she can't believe that that person is creating this conflict. She's so distraught. She wants everyone to kind of find peace. She also wants me to tell her, you don't take any stuff with you when you cross over, right?
Is there another will hidden away somewhere, Erika?
Yeah, so I am not seeing another will hidden away. Any other will that I'm sensing is exactly what the last will that she wrote says. She revised it. And the question that they're having is, was she of sound mind? And she's saying, yes, I was.
Interesting.
So look at the last will. I don't see another hidden will. I'm seeing that third will, that final will is the one that she's aligning with. But she's saying, please, please stop fighting. It's not worth it.
Erika, do our deceased loved ones continue to monitor our lives?
Yes. They absolutely, and I always say they see us, right? So they see what we're doing. They see when we, have a baby or get married or move. They are still, and they love us so much. And in fact, love is amplified and magnified in spirit. So they're still with us. But again, they're not our puppet masters. They're not bossing us around from spirit. Although sometimes spirits get bossy in readings, they are not bossing us around. But yes, they're still invested in us, love us, connected to us, and see what's happening in our lives.
How often do you see future events?
Yeah, so future events come through quite a bit if it will help the person that I'm reading for. We're not always meant to know exactly what's going to happen in the future. But at times, people feel so worried that knowing something will happen in the future will bring them peace and bring them to a better place in their life.
Erika Gabriel with us. We're going to come back after this break and take final phone calls with her. Her website, erikagabriel.com. On her website, she's got a new course that you can enroll in and really enjoy yourself. And how long is the course again, Erika?
It is 3 lessons. It's a 3-lesson plan. You can take it over 3 weeks or 3 months. When you sign up for the course, you have it for life. You have the tools for life and the information for life. So take your time and do it at your leisure.
What do you think the optimum time period is?
I would take it in 3 to 6 weeks. Each lesson you can take in 1 week's time.
Super. We're going to come back. We'll take final calls with you next. We'll be back in a moment with Erika Gabriel and take final calls here on Coast to Coast. On our next Coast to Coast program, Rod Pyle joins us to talk about some incredible stories of the space age. And then later on in the program, we'll be talking about who's behind the secret door. 4 separate guests. I don't know who they are. We'll have some fun. We'll take calls with them, and that'll be on our next program. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie back with our spiritual medium, Erika Gabriel. And Tom, you have another text and tweet for Erika?
Yeah, Erika, we sure do. Tony's trucking across the great state of Texas, and his birthday is September 18th, 1963. He has an issue with the county and some real estate he purchased, and he wants to know how you feel it will go, whether it'll get resolved in his favor or not.
Interesting question. What do you say, Erika?
Hi, Tony from Texas. I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much. So you're having an issue with the county, and okay. So here's what Spirit is saying about it. It will go in your favor, but I am like, they're showing me kind of visions of just walking through molasses. It's like I have so much red tape. I have so much, it's like they're putting legal things in my way, and they're really trying to say things and contracts that actually didn't happen. So they're kind of just taking you off guard and really creating some issues for you there. I think it will go in your favor, but it's slow. And they're just fighting you every step of the way. But keep going because you're in the right.
and it will go your way, but just get ready for, some slow going. So I'm sorry to say that, but it was like this vision of just molasses really going slowly. So I'm going to send you a lot of positive energy. I'm going to send you a lot of light so that this kind of moves quicker and goes quicker in your favor, really.
Erika, is there a devil, in your opinion?
No. There is not a scary, man with a poker torturing people. I'm sorry. It's just not real. And, but listen, the idea of devil and heaven, it's like we are putting faces to concepts, and that's okay, right? The devil doesn't have to be, a mean man, but it can be darkness. It can represent and has represented darkness, tragedy,
sure,
even darkness within ourselves, right? So that's what that is, but we like a representation. For example, think about Santa Claus, right? Santa Claus is this beautiful representation of, this incredible holiday season, and it gives children a face to share this kind of magical feeling of the holidays, right? So obviously Santa Claus and the devil are not equal, right? But it's this idea that, sometimes we want a face, and that's what the idea of the devil is. The devil can be anywhere. And really, darkness within ourselves can feel like the devil. But no, there's no mean man that's going to stick us with hot pokers like that vision that people have.
All right, back to the calls now. We're going to Mike in St. Louis, July 28, 1956. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you for my call, George. And I want to tell you, you have touched so many lives, and the wonderful guests that you have. And Erika, there's such a wonderful angelic feeling that you exude. Anyway, my question is, I have a lawsuit going on, and I wanted to know, will it finalize this year? Will I get through, much like the last caller, some red tape that's going, and it's drug on for quite some time. And then my destiny. Do you have any feeling about my destiny?
So thank you so much for your question and your kind words. So lawsuit settled next year, 2024.
Okay.
And it will get, it's like someone kind of eases out and they're just like, I'm tapping out. So you'll see that resolved in 2024. And, it's such a pain along the way, but you will get through that. And it will kind of halfway through the year next year, all of a sudden something will kind of break loose. And you'll be like, okay, this is done. It's going to be a massive relief. Don't let it take a toll. I have to say really quick, it's taking a toll a little bit on your health. So make sure you're doing good things for your body. You're working on your immune system. Don't let it break down your health. Okay, my friend, that really came up for you.
Is that right, Mike?
Good. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and anything else about maybe my destiny? What do you feel anything on what my destiny may be?
Oh, your destiny. Good. Can you ask me a specific question about that? So, do you feel like, are you asking about love?
Yeah, and location and happiness for settling.
Yeah, good. So location. Let me just see right here. Hold on one second. Where are you now, my friend? What state?
In Missouri.
He's in St. Louis.
Missouri. Okay.
St. Louis area. Yeah.
And are you ready to move, or you want to wait till after the lawsuit?
After the lawsuit, yes.
Yeah, it was like, to be honest with you, when I connected in about moving, it was like your guides were telling me, like, he's not ready. He's not ready. It's not the time.
That's fine.
And
right.
I'm like,
I do want to stay right now.
Yeah, and I'm like, why isn't it the time? And that's why I asked about the lawsuit. So when that resolves, there is kind of this space that you're left with, and you're like, whoa, okay, what am I doing now? And that's when I see the move, and you're moving over, right? So you're moving east. I'm really bad with geography, but you move eastern bound, and then a little more southern area. So this is going to be a great move for you. If you're looking for connecting with love, it's like, absolutely. If you don't already have someone, they're right there, very nearby. And that will absolutely, you'll find your person in that connection if you haven't already.
Okay, good luck, Mike. Hope everything works out for you. Next up, we're going to Elisa in Portland, 122765. Hello, Elise. Welcome to the show.
George. Hi, Erika.
Hi.
So, simply put, I think I need a miracle.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
How about a quick question?
Well, I don't even know how to identify if it's like a spirit, a ghost, a demon. I don't know. It's been attached to me for a few years to the point to where there's no way out other than to leave my body behind, and I don't even know that she can't follow me, but just the constant harassment and just it destroyed my whole life, and I can't seem to identify it, so I don't know how to diffuse it, and I feel like her free will is somehow stopping me from living my life's purpose and my life path, whatever that may be.
Can you help her out here, Erika?
Yeah, so basically what I hear you saying is that there's this overwhelming sense of a negativity and a negative energy, right? And
yes,
there's a...
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Say that again. I couldn't hear you.
Yes, she said.
Okay. And so there's an overwhelming sense of negative energy around you. So there's a couple things that I want you to do. First of all, I want you to hear my words now. Darkness cannot exist in light. Think about going into a dark room and turning on a flashlight. It's not dark anymore. Light always wins. And I want you to hold those words deep in your heart. I also want you to get in control here. So you are going to tell that energy, get out of here. You don't belong here. You have nothing to do with me. Go in the name of God. Get out. And I want you to take some time to go walk in nature. I want you to focus on your faith, your spirituality, and I want you to inundate yourself with the light, right? If that's prayer, if that is listening to powerful spiritual podcasts, you are going to have to counterbalance this negativity with positivity. And I do not want you to keep tapping into the idea that you are not in control of your life, because you are. You absolutely are. So it's all about you taking your power and your control back, which you can absolutely do.
Check back with us, Elise, and make sure that it's working for you. How long do you think it takes for something like that to take effect, Erika?
I think she could get rid of that energy today.
Really? That soon?
Absolutely. I think listen, things can go as quickly or as slowly as we decide. I think she could turn this around today.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, let's go to Mark in Minneapolis, April 13th, 1954. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show.
Oh, George, Erika, good to talk to you both.
Good to get you in. How about a question, and then she'll take it away?
Yeah. Say, I'm the kind of guy that believes that living a good and decent life is its own just reward, so I'm always trying. And the question I have is there anything that I'm failing to do in my life or that I'm doing wrong that the spirits might give me some guidance on? Or
what a great question. Thank you so much. Here's the thing. Your intention everywhere you go is to do your best, to be kind, right? You have a beautiful intention in your life, and that is what's guiding you. You are not perfect, right? If you were perfect, you'd be the first I've ever met, right? So you are learning, you are growing, and you're evolving. And the only thing that's happening that is really kind of holding you back is any kind of negative self-talk about yourself. You need to get on your own team, my friend, and continue to support yourself. Ideas that you're bad, you're wrong, you're not doing enough, right? That breaks you down. So the idea is you want your inner self-talk to be like, you know what, this guy Mark is doing his best and he's doing great. I may not be perfect, but I'm evolving, I'm growing, I'm changing, and keep your intention on aligning yourself
with what is good, what is right, and what feels good in your spirit and your heart. It's okay that you make mistakes. Mistakes are life lessons, not life sentences. And I would love for you to write that down and put it somewhere in your home or in your car, right? Mistakes are life lessons.
That's really a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Don't be so hard on yourself. You don't have to be, my friend. You're doing a great job.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. God bless.
Time for maybe one or two more calls. We go to Jeremy next in North Dakota, 8975. Jeremy, take it away.
Hello, Erica. 19 years, 2 months, and 14 days ago, I was in a near-fatal auto accident. Can you tell me why my life was spared?
Why was his life spared, Erika?
Absolutely. Your life was spared on purpose. Your life was spared. Jeremy, can you tell me, did you have kids after this accident?
No, I didn't.
You did not.
You didn't have kids, but you made connections. It was like I keep on hearing it's the connections and the people along the way, and that you know people come into our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
He had a wife, Erika, that left him.
That left you, yeah. You know, you have come into people's lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And you have really been a reason for people. You have been kind of a touchstone in people's lives. And, you know, that was important that you stay. That you stay here. You were not meant to die in that accident. You were absolutely spared on purpose. So you connecting with others and really finding a way to feel good and live out your life in the best way you can is why you stayed. In terms of, you know, your wife, it's like listen, you guys kind of parted ways and she really just changed. There's just a massive shift in her energy. And that was really, really surprising and really shocking. But you are absolutely supposed to be here. Keep connecting with others as you've come into many people's lives for a reason, season, or lifetime.
Erika, as we wrap things up, tell folks about your website and your course. We've got a minute left.
Thank you so much. My website is erikagabriel.com. That's ErikaGabriel.com. You can connect with me there. You can click on my course and start today. Join me on Instagram as well and on my podcast, You Are Not Alone.
And tell us about the podcast. How do they find you?
Absolutely. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast, look for me on You Are Not Alone.
All right. Good luck with you, Eric, and thank you again for the Beyond Belief show you did.
Oh, thank you so much. It was so wonderful to be with you today and to connect with all these incredible listeners.
Folks, you want to watch what she did, you go to beyondbelief.com, type in her name in the search engine, Erika Gabriel. She did a fantastic job for us. Coast to Coast has great programs for you all week long. For Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lux Loonhood, Sean Ladesseur, Stephanie Smith, Chris Burrows, Tim Banal, George Knapp, and Ian Punnett, I'm George Norrie, somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.